Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with infinityfluxcomics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this is our longer show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that are coming out this week to a comic book store near you. Or if you shop with us over at infinityflux.net, all these books are available right now while supplies last. So you can follow along, head over to the website, order the ones that you think sound cool, and they'll be on their way to you. But we've got some great books up. And I wanted to just a quick shout out on our YouTube. We have a kind of a store walkthrough that's been doing really well. So you always hear us say, you know, Infinity Flux Comics, Chattanooga, Tennessee, all that. But for all you know, we are just in a small room shack out in the middle of the woods. But
we really are a store, and you can see it now.
Yeah, exactly. So Matt helped put that together. Megan did an awesome job kind of narrating it and everything. So go check that out to get a better idea of what we are.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really cool.
See what's behind this right here.
Yeah. A cinder block wall.
That's right.
But behind that is
that wall,
store.
though, yeah.
But we've got a really big show this week. I mean, there was tons of number ones.
Yeah.
Tons of Blood Hunt tie-ins. So let's get into this week of goodness.
Yeah, we're going to start with Blood Hunt number 3. You can see Miles on the cover there. And so this one is just the next installment of the main story. And I will say first, read this issue before you read any of this week's tie-ins. This one definitely comes before all of those. So I will also say that other than at the beginning of this issue where the heroes deal with Miles and the predicament that he's in, there's not a whole lot of action. This is a bit more of a breather issue. The
regrouping.
Regrouping. The heroes sort of like take a breath, figure out what they're going to do. So they figure out that they're going to attack this big problem on 3 fronts. And their group that's in the Sanctum Sanctorum, they're going to split off into 3 different groups to do this. And I actually have it all typed out here, but I'm not going to go through it. I'm going to let you do that. You know, read it on your own so that I don't spoil anything. But they do have a 3-pronged attack planned. You know, they're going to do tackle the vampires on the ground. They're going to take care of the dark force in the sky, and then there's the threat of the Blood Coven and Blade. So that's kind of their 3-pronged thing.
And I like what they do is, you know, sometimes it's like, let's all split up, and they all just go different directions. This is legitimately like the Avengers working well and being like, you're the team for this, you, and they're like, okay, like one team's like, okay, and we need one more member that we're gonna go get.
Yeah.
Like they're all very like, we know our jobs, and we know in a situation like this, like who's who. And I was like, oh, this actually seems like the Avengers work really well together, and they know each other's strengths.
Yeah, definitely. There was another character tease that's going to be coming in that I'm really excited to see.
They're literally running in a shadow.
Right. Yeah. So I can't wait to see all that. The only other piece to this is that Dracula and Miles go after Bloodline because up till this point she didn't know that it was her dad who's responsible for all this.
Didn't tell her.
Yeah, he didn't tell her at all. So she finds out and sort of runs out on him. So Dracula and Miles have to go chase after her. And that is followed up on in the Miles tie-in that we'll talk about later in the issue. And then the issue ends on another big cliffhanger. A big cliffhanger. And I'm like, how are they going to come back from this? I don't know.
Jed MacKay's writing this, and it feels very Jed MacKay if you've read his Avengers. The kind of like big things he reveals. But this just felt like another, oh man, I want to see more of this.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
So just another solid, like I said, a little bit less action-packed, but another really good entry into the main Blood Hunt series. Now, before I show you the variants, we also have, this is the A cover, but there's also the red band version as well.
Yeah.
So there's a couple differences in this. In the red band version, there is a big 2-page spread that is not in the main version, but however, in the place of that in the main version is a 1-page splash that's not in this. Doesn't impact the story at all. The dialogue is mostly the same. The red band version has a couple extra caption boxes with a little bit more dialogue, but it doesn't affect the story. And then other than that, there's a few panels in this that are different, just like the last couple issues have been. But those panels aren't really bloody or gory, so I don't really know
very
why.
Weird. It's almost like it's like you're editing a movie. It's like, should we stay on a close-up of this character, or should we show something else?
Right.
And it's like, one's not really better than the other.
Yeah.
It's just a choice.
Yeah, it's just a choice basically. But yeah, so just a couple extra differences, nothing major, but just want to let you know about that. So there is our red band version right there. Then we got some cool variants. This is the Jesus Saiz variant. We've got the Baldeon Fangs variant. We've also got a Peach Momoko variant with Captain Marvel. And then we have a 1 in 10 Delato variant that we're selling for $9.99. And then we have the 1 in 25
It jumps up a little bit.
Yeah, we have the 1 in 25 Magno variant that we are selling for under $190.
That's a good QVC way of putting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a really good issue, and I really didn't mind that it wasn't quite as action-packed.
Right.
I really liked seeing Captain America has a really good scene in this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like the Avengers got really good moments in this issue.
Yeah, this is kind of like setting up for the back half of the series.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I can't wait to see what they do there and they do there and what happens with the cliffhanger. Yeah.
Okay, so next up, I've got Batman Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age, #1. This is a return to the Elseworlds that you can see the little logo up in the corner that DC used for a really long time, but then they started doing their multiverse things, and it wasn't really an Elseworld.
Yeah.
This is back to Elseworlds, which I feel like brings a certain gravitas to them and a certain feel that's not just like, well, this takes place on Earth 13 or whatever. So this is really cool. The original one came out in 1989. You had that great Mike Mignola cover. I'll be showing a facsimile of that here in a second. But this one's by Andy Diggle and Leandro Fernandez. And I don't want to give away too much about it because I feel like some of the fun in the Elseworlds is discovering what is the difference between the worlds. I will say it begins in 1860 when a strange thing crashes to Earth and some farmers discover it. Now, it's done in its own unique way, but you can kind of get the idea, and we've seen from stuff, it's called the Kryptonian Age for a reason. But we do jump to 1893, and there is a kind of a gala going on at Gotham Museum where a rich industrialist of the city is throwing this thing, showing off his collection of thing that he calls the Kryptonian Age, which in this is treated not as alien artifacts, but as a kind of Hyborian age of Earth that's kind of a time unseen that he has a lot of relics from. Which, did you look close at what the relics were? Because there's some familiar masks and certain things in there. Yeah. There's specifically two there that I was like, that's really cool. But this big showing gets the attention of a certain cat burglar of the time. A cat burglar that seems to be kind of a robber, but also of the people.
You're right. Very, very Robin Hood almost.
Very Robin Hood feeling. Of course, you can probably guess who this is, but I'm not going to say it. But there's also a masked vigilante. Batman is in this. I would say Batman's not in this a ton, more towards the second half of the book, but there's some great action set pieces and some villains revealed in this that I did not see coming that I think are going to be really cool to see them in this time period. But I'm really excited what they're building to. You get only hints of it here being the Kryptonian Age. You'll see some of the variants. It looks like we may be getting Superman, but at least he's not in this issue. But it seems like we're maybe veering towards that. And I think this series is supposed to be setting up like the Justice League of this time.
That's right.
So that makes sense with maybe the Kryptonian Age is almost more of a era of superheroes or powered people that artifacts are going to be from. Because I'll say there's a certain thing that the burglar is trying to steal that going through it, I thought I knew what it was. And when they got it, it was something different, and I thought it was even cooler. Yeah. So there's a lot of fun twists and turns and reveals that if you like that, let's look at this character through this lens, through this time period or what they be. I think you'll really like this. I really like this. The only thing I would warn people is the dialogue in it is of the era.
Yeah.
So you may have to kind of chew through the dialogue a little bit because it's very like Gangs of New York type, you know, less swearing, but more the oi governor type thing that is really fun. It's fun to read it in a Batman book, but highly recommend it. I just think it's fun, and I'm glad we're getting these Elseworld books. So that is our A cover for that. We have this really nice limb cover. I probably could have said who the burglar was the whole time, but it was more fun.
It's right there on the cover, yeah.
It was more fun being a mystery. This is the Matina cover, which I've always loved this Batman design. I love the collar, and where his eyes are cut out, and you can just see his regular eyes.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the white glass there. And this one's cool. So this is the Jock variant. This is a foil variant. It's a little hard to see that it's foil. It's the Jock variant, and there's someone mysterious floating in the sky.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, against the moon.
Yeah.
This one you can see a little bit better. This is the 1 in 25 Jock that we're selling for $19.99, where you can see that character in a cowboy hat flying. We also have this 1 in 50 Fernandez variant. This is just the Virgin version of the A cover. We are selling for $34.99. Super cool. And lastly, I just wanted to show off, and this is the foil version of it. There is a regular version, but I thought you get the idea. This is the facsimile that comes out this week. So if you've never read Gotham by Gaslight, it's just a little one-shot story. Super cool. So pick that one up, read it, then read the new one. You've got yourself a whole new DC universe to explore.
Yeah, the original Gotham by Gaslight's awesome, and that foil is really cool. I may have to snag that. All right, so next up, I've got Rifters #1. This is a new book from Image, written by Brian Posehn and Joe Troman, and the art is by Chris Johnson. And this series is all about time travel, and most of this issue in particular tells the history of time travel in this story, how it was originally heavily regulated and used to learn more about the history of the world and that kind of thing. But when a new president was elected at one point, it was at some point a new president was elected, and he deregulated everything so that corporations can make their own time travel devices and release it out to the public. And then, of course, a lot of numbskulls got a hold of the technology, and they used it to travel back in time to mess with things, and that kind of screwed up the current day. It actually kind of reminded me, not as extreme, but it reminded me a little bit of the world in 8 Billion Genies. Everybody had a wish, and there was just like bizarre stuff going on, and so it kind of reminded me of that, but nowhere near as chaotic as that. So people go back in time all the time and just do stupid things. So an organization was formed called the Regulators of Infinite and Finite Time, or Rifters, and they were created to identify and stop in progress time crimes. They have this like big computer that says, oh, somebody's going back to whatever, and they're doing this thing. We got to go stop them. Kind of like that. And so this story follows two of those rifters named Fenton and Geller. And we don't really meet them until sort of the later part of the issue, where they travel back to 1922 to stop a couple of goofballs who are, they call it intertime bootlegging, where they go back to 1922 and get a big old barrel of bourbon for, you know, like $20, you know, $20 current day cash. And when they give it to the guy, he's like, holy cow, I can do all kinds of stuff with this. So they go back in time to stop those guys. But things get pretty crazy after that. Like, things start to spiral out of control, and then we'll have to see where it goes next issue. But just another really fun book. It kind of reminded me of Time After Time, or Time Before Time.
Yeah, Time Before Time.
Yeah, from Image, kind of, you know, because there's the time travel stuff there, and then just the wackiness of 8 Billion Genies a little bit. So this is a new fun book from Image if you're looking for, if you like time travel stuff, this will be right up your alley. So yeah, Rifters #1, and that is the only cover we got.
Very cool. There's a lot of really good indie series we're going to be talking about this week. A lot of new #1s. Next up for me is X-Men Heir of Apocalypse #1. This is by Steve Fox and Netho Diaz doing the art. And this is interesting because I didn't quite know about it going into when does this take place, what is it? But this does take place after the previous run of X-Men. Mm-hmm. This is before the From the Ashes storyline. But Apocalypse has now become the kind of leader of Araco, which is Mars, and he needs to find a successor to oversee the ascension of mutants on Earth, which is kind of his whole thing. He wants mutants to grow and be the best they can
Hmm.
be, and kind of survival of the fittest and all of that. So he summons 12 possible candidates to be his successor on Earth. And it's interesting because at first I thought he was just going to be like, you don't have any say in it. But actually, he did go to these people and kind of make them an offer. And so the mutants in here are not against this idea. It's not them fighting against Apocalypse. Even like Cable is in here, and someone asks him like, "Shouldn't you hate this?" And he's like, "I've seen the future it creates. If I can stop that, if I can be my own thing and stop that from happening, then yeah, I'm going to take this leadership."
More timey-wimey stuff, you know?
Yeah, but you have a lot of really cool characters. I was going to list them all, but I don't want to give it away because it's really fun to see who's there and why. I'll say, I said Cable's there, Laura Kinney, Wolverine is there, but why is a character like Cypher there? Uh, and in this, basically, Apocalypse has a gauntlet for them, like in a very Apocalypse way where it's all like kind of in a pyramid.
Yeah.
And for most of the issue, it's like 2 and 3 characters teamed up trying to run these gauntlets. And you'll have, they go through one room and poison darts shoot out of the wall, or the ground starts rocking and they have to get through kind of all these booby traps and everything. But Apocalypse just says this is just the test. This is just the beginning of all of this. But he does also go to some of his former heralds like Angel. And Angel's not too happy he's doing this because he's like, if you're gonna put people through what you put me through, I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
stop you. But so there's kind of that element of like someone coming in from the outside, but also, what about certain characters that Apocalypse didn't choose? They're not going to be too happy about this, and they also may try to crash the party when they find out they are not chosen to be his successor. So a lot of really interesting stuff here. It's seems like a fun mini series. It gets right into the action, right,
Okay.
like right away. It does more of the like setup in flashbacks of him recruiting people, but for the most part, it begins with them running through all these challenges inside this very Egyptian-looking
Yeah.
temple. So very very cool. And if you like the very apocalypse-related characters and his horsemen and all of that, you'll like this book. And this may hold you over until some of the new X-Men
Yeah.
books kick off. So that is X-Men Heir of Apocalypse, and I said it before, I love this font, this Age of Apocalypse
Yeah.
font. Very reminiscent of that. And we also have this really cool Hildebrandt variant with one yelling Apocalypse. Or maybe he's getting his throat checked out.
It could be. He's screaming in joy, you
Yeah.
know? Oh my gosh, that's can't believe it. All right, so next we've got a Blood Hunt tie-in, the first of about today.
Mini.
This is X-Men Blood Hunt Jubilee #1. Now, this is the first of 4 X-Men plots that tie into Blood Hunt. Each issue is going to focus on a different character.
And
So
different creators, I think.
different
too,
creators,
behind
yeah.
it.
So this one focuses on Jubilee. It's written by Preeti Cheeber and the artist by Enid Ballum. And in this one, Jubilee is just traveling around trying to help anybody that she can, who's being attacked by vampires. She does meet a woman named Sonal, and she saves her from vampires, not before Sonal gets turned into a vampire. But it's not long before they are just overrun with another big horde of vampires coming after. Luckily, there is a group of good vampires known as the Forgiven, led by a character named Ghostblade, who shows up to help them. And I'm not familiar with them, but I think at least this Ghostblade character, I believe they at least popped up back when Jubilee was a
Yeah.
vampire. At one point, I'm not sure about the rest of them, so I don't know if
I
their
think
first
they were all
appearances or
kind
not.
of in the Curse of the Mutants era
Okay. Yeah.
for Jubilee.
But yeah, just a one and done story. There's nothing after this. The next X-Men tie-in is going to follow a different character on a different story. But yeah, it's just Jubilee helping vampires, and it's cool seeing her. Everything's been blacked out, but she's got these like firework powers. So it's
Yeah.
cool to see her sort of use that. So yeah, it was really cool. So if you're a Jubilee fan, if you're trying to get all the Blood Hunt tie-ins, don't miss this one. So there's our A cover right here, and then we got a couple variants from Peach Momoko. There's one right there, and then you got to have the Scotty Young Big Marvels variant featuring Jean Grey, who is not in in this issue at all.
Sir does not appear in this film.
That's right.
Okay, next up, I've got a new book from Boom. This is Lawful. This is by Greg Pak and Diego Galindo. And this is really cool. So this was actually the last book I read because it came from a different shipment. And I was like, oh yeah, I've got one more to read. And it turned out it's probably one of my favorite reads of the week. So in this, it's a very interesting world, and we don't know all the details about it, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
I kind of like when you're like, don't worry about the how, just enjoy the, the adventure of it. So in this world, following rules is super important, and none more so than for our main character, this guy down here named Sung. And his father was kind of I mean, when you see him, he comes out like in knight armor. Like he is I forgot what he's called, but it's something like a hero. I think it's called a protector. And in this world, it's kind of medieval, so there's monsters, there's stuff like that. And his father protected people from that, and he was very he looked normal, but very regal. And Sung kind of aspires to be like that. And a lot of the reason is his mom pushes him that way too. But the holdup in this world is, and the reason it's called lawful, if you follow the law, everything's fine. But if you don't follow it, if you break a rule, you slowly start turning into an animal or kind of a hybrid animal. Like as far as even in one of the tests, a kid cheats on a test, and then suddenly he has like a panther arm and stuff. Like it's an immediate thing that happens. And the more you break the law, even like crossing a street on a red light when you should wait for it to say walk or whatever, could do that. Now, Sung, because to become this thing his father was, you have to be like completely follow the law. You have to continue to look completely human. But some of his friends and stuff, they may have a tail, or they may have one guy has a crab arm. Like it happens, and they've kind of started to live with it. Like the girl on the cover is one of his friends, and she is like, he comes up and she's like, hey, you're about to do that big test, but I wrote down all the answers to the notes. He's like, no, I can't look at that. And she's like, I'm just kidding. But when he goes and tells his mom, he's like, oh yeah, she said she had these notes. And his mom's like, you didn't look at them, did you? He's like, no, I'm good. But he's a strict rule follower. But something may have happened in his past that means he's not exactly perfect. And could that come back to haunt him later? And this is really a story about, I feel like it's like if you're raised in a family where like following rules is everything, and your family relies on you doing that and being perfect, and the kind of pressure that puts on you, because his mother, even because they're so perfect, lives within this kind of community circle of people that are like them, who or have been following the law. And his mother only gets a certain medicine because they're in that inner circle. So it's up to her son to make sure that he doesn't kind of exile themselves from this inner circle. So it's a very interesting world, with very the rules are weird, like what you turn into, like you don't know.
Yeah.
But it kind of creates this really fun, oh, I wonder what they did. Where that guy's like a half crab thing down there.
I would want to try to break the law to try to grow wings and fly.
Yeah,
that'd be neat.
But then you start to wonder, maybe some of the monsters that his father was fighting off, are they people who completely turned into these beasts?
Could be.
So I know some people were comparing this, at least tonally, to Saga, and I would say it is similar in the sense of it seems like a fairly normal world. They got normal cities, but these animal people walking around and monsters, but also they go to coffee shops and stuff like that.
As you do.
So if you like that kind of modern but with a twist story with a little fantasy element, I think you'll like this. I really like this issue, so definitely check out Lawful #1. And we also have a variant. This is the Mercado variant.
All right, so next up is Godzilla Skate or Die #1. This is written and drawn by Louis Joyce, and this one is really cool. So it's set in Australia, and talking about the dialogue from Gotham by Gaslight, this is it's written very Australian slang and everything. So it's a little bit it doesn't read. It's a little different than like Americans speak, I guess. But in this one, there are four kids who find this abandoned steel factory that they think is the perfect skate park for them, and they call it the coin toss. And they're excited to go there after school. That's all they can talk about. But they're not going to get the chance to do that because one day a giant kaiju appeared in the western part of Australia and is heading east towards them. And at the same time, another kaiju named Godzilla appears in the Pacific Ocean and starts heading west towards them. And the news projects that their collision point is going to be right on the skate park. Which, why is that? We don't really know, but it was an abandoned steel factory. So I have to wonder, what were they making there? Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And the kids are horrified. They're like, no, not the coin toss. That's like our favorite place. And so they head there to try to. I don't know what they're gonna do. They say we got to go save the park, save the coin toss.
Dig it up and move it somewhere else.
I don't know what they're gonna do, but they go there to try to save it. But the real mystery is not only are they gonna be able to do that, but why are Godzilla and this other kaiju, why are they coming at each other and gonna meet right there? We'll have to wait and see. But just another good Godzilla book. I don't know how many issues this is gonna be. But I like the artwork. It's a little bit more, stylized, but it fits the tone and everything. So just really cool. And yeah, that's it. That's our A cover, and that's the only one we've got.
Next up for me, another Marvel #1. This is Scarlet Witch #1. And this definitely follows the previous Scarlet Witch series. I guess you could jump on with this, but it really builds off the backs of Steve Orlando's previous series. So this is by Steve Orlando, who did Scarlet Witch, did Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and is now doing another Scarlet Witch #1 with art by Jacobo Camagni.
Yeah. Kamani?
Yes. It's really hard with comic book creator names. But this continues the story. So Wanda has her store that she kind of sells mystical items, and it has the door in it called like the last door.
Oh yeah.
Where
so that's still around then.
That's still around.
Cool.
If it's somebody is at their lowest, they have no other options. They walk through a door and they come through, and Wanda helps them type thing. That's still around, but the store's expanded a little bit. They've hired someone new. They hired Mantor, the occult appraiser. And people bring in stuff, and he just like looks at it. It's like, oh yeah, and he can maybe manipulate it a little bit if he needs to. But adding more to the cast of this series. But one day, a not related to Blood Hunt, a tear opens up in the sky to a dark dimension, and these like flying leech monsters fly out of it and start attacking. So Wanda goes up to fight them, of course. She tells Darcy, who's still in this, hey, watch the store, keep everybody safe. But it keeps getting worse and worse outside, and Wanda has to actually call upon the Darkhold, which is inside of her, back from that Darkhold miniseries, to defend it. But it seems like there's someone even worse kind of behind the scenes. And I believe it's a new character because Wanda doesn't know their name. And they call themselves the Griever at the End of All Things. So it just flows off the tongue.
That's a long name. Yeah. That sounds like a title for a manga or something like that. Yeah.
But like always, this looks like too much for Scarlet Witch to take. Will she be able to do it? But the other interesting thing is, as things are getting worse, Darcy says well, I'm at this is the lowest. What can I do? What happens if I walk through the last door the other way?
Ooh.
Instead of walking out of it, what if I go into it? And sets up maybe something else going on. So really cool issue. But if you're wanting to read it, pick it up, read it. But then if you like it, go back and read the previous Scarlet Witch series and the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver miniseries, because Quicksilver is also in this again, which is really cool. So that is our A cover for that. We also have our Go variant. We've got, of course, our Scotty Young Big Marvels variant.
Big Marvels.
We've got this really nice Nguyen variant. It's very cool. We've got, I really like this one. This is a P. Craig Russell foil variant. Very classic. And then we have a couple of incentives. We have a 1 in 25 Lozano variant we're selling for $19.99. And we have a 1 in 50 Scotty Young black and white variant that we're selling for $39.99.
Like that. I want to take it out and color it different color, make the Scarlet Witch, green or something like that. Just because
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll hold its value still.
I've never seen a blue duck, and I just wanted to draw one. All right, so next up we've got Deadpool and Wolverine, World War III #2. If you're excited for the Deadpool Wolverine movie coming up soon, this might be the book for you. So in this one, Deadpool has been altered by a villain named Delta, and I believe this is their first full appearance in this. We saw it happen at the end of last issue, but we didn't really know what was going on at the time. So now we see it a little bit more. And so now Deadpool is like I said, he's been altered, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of the end of X-Men Origins Wolverine, because he wasn't as wisecracky, and he's a little bit more quiet, and he had these big blades that come out of his arms. And he and Wolverine end up fighting, but there's cameras like drones flying around, and it's for the amusement of a group of rich and powerful people. There are these people that are just watching them from inside this structure, and so they fight for a while and they end up stopping. They get teleported to the middle of nowhere in the tundra of northern Russia, and they have no idea where they are. So they just start walking to try to find civilization somewhere, and they wind up being out there for weeks. And their healing factor can only do so much against hunger and things like that. And when they're at their absolute weakest, they're thrown into another fight. But this one they may not be able to win because, like I said, they're so weak. They don't. They're a little bit delirious. Deadpool is still not himself because of this weird like biomechanical programming that this villain named Delta has put him through. So it's just really weird. I don't really know where it's going. I don't really know how how this is gonna get undone from him. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, just a pretty good Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't want to say team up book, but with the two of them in it.
Yeah.
So we have our A cover right there, and we got some cool variants. We have this Jan Bazaldua Stormbreakers variant. And we have this 1 in 25 La Roca variant that we're selling for $29.99. And then we have this 1 in 50 Hildebrandt variant that we're selling for $49.99. Nice Marvel Masterpiece cover there.
So next up, I've got Ultimate X-Men #4. So this is just say the series is a slow burn.
Yep.
It is, but there's a lot of mystery to this that's really interesting. So in this, Hisako and May seem to be getting better at their powers. I feel like May was already a little bit ahead of Hisako and Armor's ability to armor up. But in this, Armor runs into almost literally a very mysterious character who may be related to some of the shadow stuff we've been seeing. And
I couldn't tell if they were responsible for that shadow creature or what. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, and their friend that died at school, he seems to know about that. But Hisako doesn't really recognize this boy. Like, she's seen him before, but not like she knows, or like he goes to her school, not quite sure. But something happens where she has to use her powers, and this may reveal to the world that they are mutants. But there's some stuff that goes on that maybe, they're still protected, but maybe not. And another mysterious figure is there. You'll see on some of the variants, but I still can't figure out exactly who it is.
That's the thing, is like it's the first appearance of a new character, or at least a new character in this Earth. I have no idea who it is. I know that we haven't seen her before, but I don't know who it's supposed to be.
Yeah, she does something that was like, well, I if that's her power, I don't know anyone with that power.
Right.
So you'll have to read it to see. This is very much like, I don't want to say up to interpretation, but a lot of this book is like, well, what do you think is going on?
Yeah.
Like, what
and my answer is like, I have no idea.
Yeah. But Peach Mocha's art continues to be great. I like the characters, and I'm excited to see this build to kind of what is the big story going on
Yeah.
here.
Also, this issue is very light on dialogue.
Yeah.
So you'll read it in like 5 minutes, and unfortunately, that doesn't really help explain what's going on. There's actually some action though. I mean, there's a pretty big
Yeah.
fight in the street in the rain, but light on dialogue and.
And I learned stuff about motorcycles, or a certain type of motorcycle.
That's right.
You'll see about that at the end of the book. But so that is our A cover. Now here's the interesting thing: you see all those characters on the cover. They're not in it. Only really the two main ones are in it. And we still have that character down there that looks a lot like Rogue, who is not in this.
Yeah.
So I've still got a lot of questions.
Or at least a character that looks like that isn't
Yeah.
in this. Yeah, I don't know. And I think this character up here is supposed to be like this Earth's version of Cyclops, maybe, but that's not been confirmed, and they're not in it either.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we're still figuring this out. So we've got some variants. This is the Peach Momoko variant with that mysterious character. You can see there's that shadow, that googly-eyed shadow monster behind him.
Oh, I want somebody to buy that issue and actually stick googly eyes to the cover. That'd be great.
I really like this one. This is the Lucas Wernick variant. And that character, the blue character, is the character that we see in there that we're not quite sure who they are. So that is the Wernick variant. We have the Megan Hetrick variant with that character.
Whoever it is.
Someone with blue hair.
But this is what you more or less see in the book.
In the book.
Yeah.
So this is the 1 in 25 Momoko design variant. We're selling for $6.99.
I don't have a clue. I got nothing.
I'm not sure. So if you have an idea, let us know. But yeah, very interesting issue. And if you've liked the previous ones, you'll probably like this one. It's very similar.
All right, so next I've got Ain't No Grave #2. I love this so much. Scotty Young, Jorge
really
Corona.
good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So in this one, Ryder, who is our protagonist here, she has arrived in Cyprus looking for death. But it turns out that she's wanted there as well. There's a bounty on her head, basically. And almost the entire issue is her fighting everyone in town because everybody in that town is coming after her to collect that bounty.
They're kind of undead. They look like they're not zombies, but they're definitely look kind of corpsey.
Right. And so almost the entire issue, like I said, is just her fighting everyone. It's very action-packed. It's pretty light on dialogue as well, but the visuals are great, like especially the colors and the action and all the stuff that she does.
It has a very like surreal tone to it. It does give me a little bit of like Tim Burton vibes, or like Corpse Bride or something like that. That the town has a little green tint to it.
Yeah,
that makes it a little supernatural.
Yeah, she's jumping rooftops and diving in windows and all kinds of stuff. Now she eventually does meet someone who knows why she's there and tells her that she needs to get to a boat to continue on her journey to complete her quest. And she races across the town, still fighting people to try to get to the boat on time. And yeah, we'll have to see if she does.
And there's some interesting flashback things where you see her time when she was more of an outlaw, and then when she was more of a family person. And with her kids and all of that, which I thought was a really nice balance to the violence than to her like at a lake day with her kids and her family and stuff. So that was really cool.
So yeah, if you enjoyed the first one, definitely don't miss this because it is more good stuff. And that's the A cover, and that's the only one we got.
Next up, another new #1. This is, let's see right there, Remote Space. So this is a new one. It's written, drawn, everything by Cliff Rathburn, who worked on, he's been an inker. He did the gray tones for Walking Dead, worked on Invincible. He talks about it in the issue, in the backup, about all the different stuff he's working on. And he's been working on this for years. Now, this is a very high concept sci-fi story. So I'll do my best to kind of give you the idea about it. But there's a lot of exposition about humanity as the world was dying. Some of the people took the route of, we're going to kind of adapt engineering, kind of robotics, that kind of thing. And some of humanity, the ones that couldn't leave to the stars with the more robotic people, and there's a word for that. It's more like robotic augmentation or
Oh
something like
yeah,
that.
like androids or cyborgs or
Yeah, a
something.
little bit like that. The ones that left had to adapt with more like bioengineering and genetics and stuff like that. So you had these two groups that went off, but the ones on Earth uh, lasted for like 400 years. But then they realized like we're not going to, the way we're evolving and everything, we can't reproduce as well, and we're going to have to adopt some technology. So we're kind of 400 years after that, and you have these kind of monstrous looking people. You can kind of see one of the main characters up there. She kind of looks like a Hellraiser character. Um, they have their community, but it seems like a new baby hasn't been born in months, and they're kind of worried about like their own extinction. So they might have to do something to call back the people who chose kind of the robotics and technology back to Earth to help them kind of revitalize the Earth. There is still a lot of really cool action in this, as we have an arena fight where they pit like a more robotic, like android that they've made against a more like monstrous uh, human-like character. But I think a lot of the cool story from this is going to come from a character named Lola that you meet. She's in Antarctica, which is like a desert now, and she's doing some research, working on some tech stuff. But the thing about her is she has kind of a disability or something in her like genetics where she can't adapt to all the different changes that people have been going through. She does have a robotic hand, but that comes from an accident that she had when she was younger. But she can't get all of the like high level engineering, bioengineering, extra arms, weird legs, all of that. So she's kind of a unique one, but she wants to be like everyone else, but she can't adapt to it. But as she's investigating things, it looks like some technology that they have is being overrun by more organic matter. And does that have something to do with what's been going on with their people, all of that? So it's a really interesting book, but very, very like high concept
Yeah.
sci-fi. But really cool action, great art, all of that. So if that sounds like your tone, it's remote space, and there's only the one cover for it.
All right, well, next up, we've got Geiger #3, continuing the awesome Geiger series. In this one, Geiger and Nate head to Montana to continue their quest to find the guy who was cured of the same condition that Geiger has. On the way, they stop at a library to get some books that are special to Geiger, but Nate doesn't really understand why they're special. He said, I'm not much of a reader. And I was like, I can relate to you, Nate. But
He's not much a reader, but also he kind of seems like a dunderhead.
Yeah, right.
I never knew what good books are for.
Yeah, right. So they stop at a library for some quiet moments to get some books. That was really cool. Along the journey, we see a new type of wasteland threat called the Organ People, and these are people who have been severely mutated, and they want to steal the organs of healthy people to use in their own bodies to replace their mutated organs, and whatever they can't use, they just want to eat. So they're not super nice people. So there's some good action between Geiger and Nate, and then those guys. Um, the ending was really touching, I thought. With related to books and memories and childhoods and all that stuff. Except for the last page wasn't so touching, but before that last page pretty much was. There is a surprise cameo from another unnamed universe character
right
in the beginning. I won't say who it is, but it was cool to see that character in this book, and hopefully they'll meet up at some point.
They'll be maybe paths crossing.
Yeah.
And there's another character in that one that's also cameo.
Yeah, so looks like we may be starting to see some worlds colliding at some point, which is really cool. I just thought this issue injected some heart into an otherwise like action-packed post-apocalyptic story, but there's still room for some feels in there as well, and that's what this issue did. So just another fantastic issue of Geiger. If you got the first two and love it, don't miss the third one. So there's our A cover right there, and we also have our shoot, I didn't get the name. Dino? It says Dino on the cover. Dino cover right there.
It's just Geiger just wants to sit down and read a book.
That's all he wants to do.
And not get bothered.
Yeah.
And everything's just trying to stop him from getting specifically one book
Right.
He's got, I think in this, he's like has 4 copies of,
Yeah.
and every one of them something bad happens.
Yeah. And I can relate to that. I just want to sit down and read a comic book. You know, just
Yeah.
leave me alone, world. I just want to read this.
Okay, next up, I've got Transformers number 9. This picks up right after where Transformers number 8, where Soundwave is talking to Shockwave across space because Soundwave is on Earth and Shockwave is on Cybertron. But something's going to happen. Shockwave's been working on something that may help bridge the gap between the two in a really cool way. Now, something this issue definitely does is there's a lot of action, and if you have a favorite Transformer, no one's safe.
Nobody is safe in this.
If it's somebody that even has a name and not just a random bot in the background, they're not safe. And there's some pretty horrific scenes with the Transformers that it does not look good for a lot of them. In this one, but I thought it was a great issue. Plus, there is another new character that pops up at the end.
Yep.
That
not new character, new to this universe.
But yeah, we haven't seen them in this series yet.
And I was really excited.
And I was kind of wondering, how did they get there?
Yep.
We didn't see this character get revitalized or anything like that.
Yep.
So what's going on there? But just really, really cool, really fun, tons of action, and just a lot of suspense with you don't know who's going to live or die in this. So we've got our A cover right there. We also have this Jorge Corona variant. Very cool. We have this Howard variant. This is part of the connecting kind of Energon universe covers. Plus we have the black and white version of that. Then we have this really cool, this is the Wayshack 1 in 25 variant. We're selling for $12.99. And we have this 1 in 50 Baldion variant. We're selling for $24.99.
All right. Deadpool number 3. We got some more Deadpool for you. In this one, Death Grip continues his quest to kill Deadpool, and he obtains an item that can help him actually do it. I won't tell you what it is, but it's not a new item. We've seen it plenty of times in the Marvel Universe before, so it'd be cool to see what he does with it. But meanwhile, Deadpool fights Crossbones, as you see on the cover here, which is really cool. And just when things aren't looking so great for him, he is saved by an unlikely ally who's wants to be part of their group, and Deadpool reluctantly lets them. And then Deadpool and Taskmaster and the others in their group, they figure out that it was Death Grip who sent Crossbones to take him out, and they start to plan their counterattack on Death Grip. So just, I've been enjoying this. I've never been the biggest fan of Deadpool in the comics, but I'm digging this series quite well. Feels like they've balanced out the goofiness of Deadpool with some good action, good artwork, all that stuff. So I really enjoyed this. So we have our A cover right there. We got some cool variants. This is the Weight variant. A little Mario Brothers homage there.
It's just like the Doctor Doom is a Goomba.
Yeah, that's all. Well, Doctor Doom's not even in this, but sure, we'll use him anyway. We have this movie variant. Can't wait to see that movie. We have a Liefeld variant. He's done a couple Deadpool images before. And then I accidentally showed you this with Deadpool and Wolverine. This is actually the Hildebrandt variant for Deadpool number 3, and then this is the one that I accidentally showed you, the 1 in 50, or maybe this was, I don't know. But the Hildebrandt variant is for Deadpool number 3, not Deadpool Wolverine number 2. My bad.
Easily confused. Both are Deadpool.
That's right.
Next up, I've got our next giant size. This is giant size Daredevil number 1. This is by Saladin Ahmed and Paul Davidson, which Ahmed is the current writer on Daredevil. Yeah, and this actually takes place before Daredevil 10, so it's a little bit of a break there. Which is interesting because the other ones haven't really tied too much into their series.
Yeah, they've been just their own. They might have referenced a thing or two, but they've been their own thing.
But in this, Kingpin is kind of on a rampage. He seems to maybe have a little extra power in this. And he is, going from place to place, almost seeming like he's trying to get Daredevil's attention by doing that. So you have to read it to see what's going on with him. But what's wrong with Kingpin and why why does he almost seem like he one way he wants to kill Daredevil, but the other way he needs him? So very
Really, he
interesting.
needs to kill him.
Yeah, a little bit of that too. But really interesting issue. I haven't been reading the main Daredevil, so I wasn't quite sure what's going on with Kingpin at this point.
Yeah.
But I'll say this feels like the Kingpin from the giant Kingpin from a lot of the stuff. Like he can crush people with one hand,
Yeah.
and it's pretty brutal. So that is our number one, and Elektra Daredevil is in it as well.
Nice.
But this is mostly Kingpin. It's narrated by Kingpin and everything. We also have the villains variant by Barden.
All right, well, next up we've got Dick Tracy, number 2, continuing the mystery of the diner that got shot up in the first one. Now, there's a few different moving parts in this issue. We've got Dick Tracy questioning Mumbles about the shooting in that diner, but his questioning is cut short when Mumbles is mysteriously moved into protective custody before he should have, so that was a little bit sus. And then one of Dick Tracy's old war buddies, a guy named Pat Patton, he investigates the disappearance of his brother and questions Pruneface. So we're starting to get some classic Dick Tracy villains in here. And then Dick Tracy runs into Patton in the police station, and they start talking and realize that the two things they're investigating are kind of related to each other. And then we also see another Dick Tracy villain, Flat Top. He's involved as well. And yeah, so just some more mystery, what is going on, who's running things. There just seems to be 2 or 3 different factions of crime bosses, in the city, and everything's going to come to a head. Dick Tracy's going to get caught in the middle. So if you enjoyed the first one, this just continues on this story, and it's really cool. And he does use his wristwatch in this one. He's like, oh, I've got a call. Hey, what do you need? So that was really neat. That was cool to see that. So we have our A cover right there, and then we have this Brent Schoonover and Nick Filardi variant right there. And then there is this 1 in 10 Francavilla variant that we're selling for $6.99.
Next up for me, I've got Star Wars Darth Vader number 47. And we're really starting to wrap up a lot of storylines in this. So Vader's on Exegol with the Schism, Imperial, all of that. And the Sith Eternal, the kind of acolytes that are on Exegol, send the Summa Vermina, which is this giant tentacle space monster you see here.
Yikes.
After Vader. But who walks away okay in this is Vader, but how does he fight a giant kind of Cthulhu-esque space beast? You'll have to read to find out, but it's really cool. Plus, there's actually a lot of stuff with Luke in here where it definitely seems like we are heading towards Return of the Jedi as Luke meets a character from this Darth Vader run that I can't wait to read the next one to see their interaction, because it's when he learns who it is, it's going to be great. So a really fun issue of Darth Vader. We've got some variants for that one as well. So we've got this. This is the Pride Month variant with Dr. Aphra. And we have a 1 in 25 Lashley variant that we're selling for $20.
All right, so next up, I've got Spider-Boy number 8. This is the first appearance of a new Spider-Boy villain called Puzzle Man. Now, Spider-Boy is desperate to get his mom to remember who he is, so he goes to the feast shelter to get a picture of the two of them to go show her in the hopes of jogging her memory. But Puzzle Man gets in the way, and he wants to know how Spider-Boy made the world forget him. Of course, it wasn't Spider-Boy's thing. He didn't do it voluntarily. But Puzzle Man doesn't know that, so he wants to know, how did you do that, Spider-Boy? And he uses his magic pencil, and it's not like a little one, it's like this big magic pencil, to make Spider-Boy complete a bunch of sort of rudimentary puzzles, like search a word puzzles and crossword puzzles and stuff. But it's really funny because the way it's shown in the book, it looks like it's big enough for the reader to complete. Like the puzzles is like it's on the side of a building or something, and Spider-Boy has to do it. And it's funny, you turn the page and there's a little caption box that says, here's the answers to the previous puzzle, and it's like it's very tongue-in-cheek, a little bit meta. And just, yeah, so Spider-Boy has to solve all these puzzles and take out Puzzle Man. And it's just really fun. Like, it's just, this is just a fun comic book, just kind of goofy, but in a good way. So we have our A cover right there featuring Puzzle Man. And then we have this Scotty Young Big Marvels variant.
It's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I really like this one. I think maybe that's the one I pre-ordered too.
Lastly for me, I've got Suicide Squad Dream Team number 4 of 4. I wanted to just mention this one because this has been a lead up to Absolute Power. We saw in the Free Comic Book Day book that Dreamer is with Amanda Waller, kind of working for her, but not sure why. Well, in this, we do see what does Amanda Waller have that kind of makes Dreamer kind of like the same stuff with Green Arrow. Like, you might get something out of this as well, but it does say that this story is to be continued in the what's the
Ground Zero?
Ground Zero.
Absolute Power Ground Zero?
Absolute Power Ground Zero. So this leads into that. So you do get some Absolute Power stuff in here, just barely. You do kind of get your first mention of Task Force 7 in this.
Okay.
But it's going to be continued in that one shot. So very cool. Wrapping up the series. And we also have the WWIII variant for Pride Month with Dreamer.
All right, guys, so we've got 5 more Blood Hunt tie-ins, and I'm going to kind of speed run through all of them real quick just to let you know a little bit about what happens in them. The first one is Amazing Spider-Man Blood Hunt number 2. In this one, Spider-Man and Misty Knight and the Lizard are trying to figure out how to save Morbius and Colleen Wing from Hemoglobin Incorporated, which is the group that kidnapped them. And while they do have Colleen Wing locked up in a cage, they actually asked Morbius for his help with their cure that they're making. They said, we have a serum that takes vampires from feral to controlled, but we can't take them from controlled back to human. And they want his help with that, but I think there's a little bit more to them that we don't quite know yet. So we'll have to wait and see what that is.
Mention the best line of the book that they canonize.
No, I'm gonna let them read it.
People will be talking about one line.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So this is our A cover right here, and then we have this Beren's cover as well. And then, you're going to take those? Yeah, you can take those for me. And then next up, we've got Strange Academy Blood Hunt number 2. And this one's pretty cool because the kids and the readers learn a little bit more about Pia, who is the new student that we met last issue.
Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. But the more they learn about her, the more it changes their plans for what they wanted to do with the Darkhold. And then speaking of the Darkhold, they have a run-in with the Darkhold, who is now a boy, an actual, like a young boy. And so we learn more about him as well. And then there's another character who shows up at the end, who I'm very excited about, who was teased in the main Blood Hunt number 3. So I'm really excited for that character to sort of, get involved in all this. So that was really cool. So we have our A cover right here. And then there is the Terry Dodson variant for that one as well. And then next is Miles Morales Spider-Man number 21. So this one is kind of important. If you were very confused by the end of Blood Hunt number 2, I was like, what? How did that happen to Miles? It gets explained in this. We see exactly how he wound up in that predicament. So half of the issue is a flashback showing us how that happened. The other half is set at the current time, and he's going to team up with Hightail to stop the resurgence of the vampire Ramir, who he and Hightail and Blade and Bloodline fought against a few issues ago in his own book. So, we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. But it does get explained in here how the thing that happened to him. So I thought that was cool. So we have our A cover right there, and then we have the Scotty Young Big Marvels variant. I love that one. That's so cool. And then next up, I was really curious about this one, and I really liked it. This is Fantastic Four number 21. This is a Blood Hunt tie. This series so far has been kind of an anthology series, doing its own thing, but now it's getting wrapped up in Blood Hunt. In this one, Reed and Alicia take a trip to New York to visit a museum, but while they're there, that's when the skies go dark, and a big horde of vampires attacks the museum. And Reed comes up with a plan to protect everyone there, but it's kind of a short-term plan, and he knows he needs a little bit more of a permanent solution. So the art in this is really good. There's some really good action, and we see Reed literally get stretched to his limits and beyond. So it's really cool to see just sort of him on his own, while the rest of them are back in, I think, Arizona, fending off some vampires as well. So it's cool to see Reed kind of by himself trying to take on vampires, because when does that happen? So we have our A cover right there, and then we have another Scotty Young Big Marvels variant featuring Ben Grimm, so that's really cool. And then the last one is still my favorite one. This is Avengers number 15. And this is one big, giant, action-packed issue. The entire issue is a fight with Captain America and his makeshift team of Avengers versus Baron Blood and his horde of Nazi vampires aboard a helicarrier. And that's the whole thing. There's just them fighting the whole time. And it's just really cool. Baron Blood, from back in his World War II days, and trying to stop them from doing whatever he wants to do. And it's just cool. Like, the artwork's great. Everything about it is cool. This is my favorite tie-in so far, or this Avengers, these last two Avengers have been my favorite tie-in. So there's our A cover right there. And then we have another Scotty Young Big Marvels variant featuring Black Panther.
Is that it?
That's all the tie-ins. All those 5, and then plus the Jubilee book. That was 6 tie-ins plus
the actual Blood Hunt.
The actual Blood Hunt. So big Blood Hunt week.
Yes, very much so. So maybe you got a better idea of what to look for when you head into your store, or when you go to infinityflux.net and you're perusing around, you're saying, I remember they talked about this and that sounded good.
Yep.
You just have a better idea now.
This one, yeah.
Your unbiased opinion.
I really like it. It's great.
Yeah.
That one and Fantastic Four are both super good. My favorite.
That's
ones.
awesome.
Yep.
But there was a lot to check out this week, so hopefully you learned a little bit more about what's on the inside of these, because that's the kind of service we try to provide here. So you can see we've got a new little border around us.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some really cool changes coming up that just kind of quality of life improvements, and a lot more really fun stuff. But if you made it to the end of the video...
Oh, shoot. I don't... Drop us a bat, or maybe like a little lantern. Did we do that before? But do it again, because, it's cool that Gotham by Gaslight is back.
Gaslight.
Yep.
So thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really means a lot to us. And until next time, see ya.